This Be the Verse by Philip Larkin. They fuck you up, your mom and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They fill you with the faults they had and add some extra just for you. But they were fucked up in their turn by fools in old-style hats and coats, who half the time were soppy stern, half at one another's throats. Man hands on misery to man. It deepens like a coastal shelf. Get out as early as you can, and don't have any kids yourself. Alright, so I just absolutely love that poem. I was really shocked when I first read it that someone had managed to distill it all into such a neat, tidy, creative little package. I think it's just, an absolute gem. And so I want to go through kind of line by line here and talk about what some of it means to me, or the things that I feel like are kind of profound in it or worth talking about. So to start out, they fuck you up, your mom and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. I think it's important to note what I like about that is that, even the parents that are like good parents, quote unquote, they still do have negative influences on you, because they are only as broad as their life experience. And so even, the most well-meaning parents may not know, they may unknowingly, feed you terrible food that leads you to become overweight and, be bullied or something. That didn't happen to me, but that's a good example, I think. Or, even the most well-meaning parents might push you towards terrible careers or steer you away from excellent careers or give you, terrible advice in any department, right? So, to me, they fuck you up, your mom and dad. They really, that's even, it's obvious when parents are neglectful, abusive, manipulative, obviously that fucks you up. But I think just because all parents are people, and people have their shortcomings and their limitations and their points of ignorance, and so I really do see even the best parents having negative impacts on their children in a number of ways. But they were fucked up in their turn by fools in old-style hats and coats. So this one I like quite a bit too. It does kind of soften the blow on your parents though, because they too were just kind of brought into the world not knowing what the hell was going on, and then raised by limited people with their shortcomings and their ignorances. And so I like that it does kind of soften the blow on parents a little bit, because it's not entirely their fault. It's there's a lot of cultural pressures. They had a lot of things kind of foisted upon them, and all of that. So they do the best they can, I get that, but so I like that line as well. Who half the time were soppy stern and half at one another's throats. So I like the soppy stern line might be my favorite. That phrase, soppy stern, might be my favorite part of the poem. And it's up there at least. And so what I like about it so much is I think that is a thing with parenting where they're so it's such a weird mixture of emotions that come through with parents, because I at least see a lot of this. I've seen not just in my specific parents, but just like culturally parenting attitudes, the whole soppiness with the like, oh, I've got to keep my child's macaroni art from 2nd grade. It's such a priceless gem. This soppiness, or the like, I've got to keep their little onesie in their little, or the soppiness in terms of like the sort of gross sentimentality around some holidays, and just like the mega celebration when people have children, and so I certainly see the soppiness, and then the sternness, obviously, that like parents are like, if they're trying to be good parents, they like throw down the sternness at different times to prevent their kids from going off track. And but I do think it's like that contrast is interesting, though, like the very like soppy, squishy, like whoa, like emotional soppiness, and then the hard kind of like firm, demanding, rigid sternness. And when I think a big part of it would seem that a big part of parenting would be like, when do you deploy which tool, and I think that the failure to deploy the right tool at the right time causes a lot of problems. But so I also want to say too, I guess I should have mentioned this earlier, but I think it is interesting how, like, I guess this goes more with the line about who were fucked up in their turn by fools with, so this is more about, like, the parents is just the idea that, parents normally come into things trying to rectify what they think was done wrong to them in their childhood. Like, they're projecting this narrative onto their child now. So like my mom always felt like she grew up like kind of like very poor and sort of like somewhat overweight and just kind of like an outsider, it seems like not, I guess, in the social, like, inner circle or whatever. And so I feel like a lot of my upbringing was around how do we not be poor? Like, let's, like, enjoy some of these, like, minor trappings of wealth in terms of, and, by wealth, I mean, like, comfortable middle class existence or whatever. So, like, going out to eat regularly and, a couple cars, like all this stuff, right? So anyway, and then I think with my dad, his family split up, like his parents got divorced, and that was like really hard for him. So I think he really wanted a house where there was not that tension and things were very unified, and like he that was his like effort within the family, was to do so. I think that those were kind of the efforts that they were coming in with. Anyway, so soppy stern, half at one another's throats. At one another's throats, I'm lucky that I did not experience that. But what I like about it is it sort of points to the fact that everything is not just like peaches and creams and soppiness within the family, right? Like, people, like, there is a lot of familial conflict, and there's also a lot of the fact is that, like, most abuse and most which again, like, I'm lucky, I'm fortunate, I'm in no way ever experienced any kind of abuse, but it is just a fact that the majority of abuse happens within the home, So that's just like something to recognize, I think, with that line. So let's move on here. Man hands on misery to man, it deepens like a coastal shelf. To me, that really speaks to antinatalism, and it speaks to, like people like sort of unconsciously continuing this whole like life thing, having kids, procreating, them just sort of like man hands on misery to man. It's just like, they have kids because, like we were just saying, they want to rectify their childhood, and they just hand the misery on unknowingly or unintentionally. They think they're going to be able to give their child, like, oh man, if I could just live my life over again and change this one piece, then everything would be perfect. If I could just fix this one piece of my childhood, then it'd be perfect. And so if I raise a kid and I don't do that one piece of my childhood that was bad, then their life will be perfect, right? It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. So, man hands on misery to man for all these reasons. And obviously, it deepens like a coastal shelf. I think, to me, that has to do with the generations. Like, if you have one kid, like, you might be having 1,000, just by the way that like lineage works. Like, you choosing to have one kid may mean that that one kid has 3 kids, and then their 3 kids have how many kids, like 6 kids. And so like it can just, how many people end up being born as a result of your decision to have one child. And so that's, to me, it deepens like a coastal shelf. It's just like, and then also, it may also speak to like sort of the change over time. I believe this poem was written after World War II, or like after one of the big, great sort of like shocks to people's value systems. And so like Philip Larkin, like, it may have been that he was kind of saying like, these old constructs that people just sort of lived by and gave them comfort and meaning and stuff, they fall away over time. And I'm not someone that would think that way. I don't like those old like traditional construct sort of things, but the misery does deepen as we sort of gain a better understanding of the reality of the world. At least that's what I would say. So it deepens like a coastal shelf. Get out as early as you can, and don't have any kids yourself. I think those lines are pretty straightforward. I don't think there's, too much that I need to add onto that. But I do like that he just like puts it there so unequivocally as the solution to the problem that he describes throughout the rest of the poem. And I mean, doesn't get much more antinatalist than that, right? So I love this poem. I imagine if you are listening to me, you may have come across it, but if not, you're welcome, and I will talk to you in the next one here.